Wow, wow, wow. What was going to be an emergency podcast for all the wrong reasons has turned into an emergency podcast for all the right reasons because Arsenal are in for Eberechi Eze. Arsenal have made their move according to David Ornstein. Wow. Brilliant stuff. We're going to get into it. We're going to unpack it. We're going to do all of that on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. We're going to take your thoughts and reaction to this news, which broke, 10 minutes ago. We are live. We are here. We've got you covered. Thanks for listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner pod. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. How are we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the pod. Good to see you all with us on this Wednesday evening. And wow, I mean, for those of you that were here with us a few minutes ago, basically, I started a stream about the Kai Havertz injury. We were talking about that. We were talking about how it forces us into the market. We were talking about, how Arsenal would maneuver given that, we'd heard that actually they can't really do any more significant business until they make sales. I was making the argument on the main pod this morning that surely a football club of our size and with our financial muscle should be able to find a way of making the numbers work, of shifting a few things about and being able to kind of line up a deal while we work on those sales in the background. And maybe we should just bet on ourselves that by the end of the window, we will oversee those departures and we'll be fine and we'll be okay. That's what we were talking about this morning. On this evening's original pod, we were talking about how long Havertz might be out for, and we were talking about a piece in the Telegraph where it was said that Arsenal would be looking at low cost / loan options. We were doing all of that, and it was all a little bit downbeat. And then all of a sudden, as if it came from upstairs, not upstairs in my house, like not from my wife, as if it came from God, the big man himself, the stream went out. The stream went out. StreamYard, the software I use, completely bugged out on me. My internet was still working, but StreamYard just died. And so I left it dead air for about 4 or 5 minutes while I frantically tried to get back onto the stream. And just before I managed it, I got a notification on my phone which said, Arsenal, Eberechi Eze. And that was kind of all I needed to read before I got excited. Started running around the room like a child celebrating. And here we are with a refreshed and much more positive and upbeat stream. Let's bring you exactly what David Ornstein has posted. Let's fill you in on what he's said. And then we can kind of take it from there. We can react to it. We will talk about the Kai Havertz injury as well, because that is important. That is significant. That might be what's pushed Arsenal into actually moving forward with this. And maybe this is something that they feel the need to do more so now because they might know that Kai Havertz is going to be out for a lot longer than we're hoping. But look, let's start with this. Let's start with the good news. So David Ornstein put this out, exclusive. Arsenal make move for Eberechi Eze and the 27-year-old wants them. Tottenham lined up a deal with Crystal Palace today and the player, but after the Havertz injury, Arsenal are now closing in on the England international. If he proceeds with the choice, Tottenham will pursue other targets. There we go. There we go. So I'm buzzing, man. I'm buzzing because this is a guy that I've wanted for such a long time. Throughout the summer, I've been talking about him. Throughout the summer, I've repeatedly said he is the answer. He is the solution. He's the one, given all the options that were presented and all the options that we were talking about over the course of the summer, he's the one that feels like the right fit. He brings a unique quality. He brings trickery, skill, the ability to carry the ball. He brings an unpredictability, a spontaneity to the attack that we just don't have right now. And when it felt like, and this was only this morning, by the way, Arsenal were not going to push forward with this deal, I was disappointed. And I've been saying over and over again, if you went into the summer thinking that 2 attacking signings was enough, I don't necessarily disagree with that original opinion, but they had to be the 2 right attacking signings. And I also explained on the main pod this morning that actually bringing in Eberechi Eze, a player who isn't quite a left winger, is kind of half a left winger and half a more central player, but then having that signing complement the Madueke one Actually, as a pairing, I'm quite happy with that. I'd be happy with Eze alone, but then I'd argue and wonder whether we have enough width. I'd be certainly happier, though, with Eze alone rather than Madueke alone. Had we not gone and moved for another player on top of Madueke and on top of Gyökeres, I would have felt underwhelmed. How much of a role has the Kai Havertz injury played in us actually coming to the table? Was this part of the plan anyway? Look, we don't actually know. Okay. And this news has broken, 10 minutes ago. I'm literally bringing you the rawest reaction possible. So bear with me if I'm a little bit all over the place and a little bit excitable. I'm really and truly buzzing with this because I think for me, for me, this is the signing that I really wanted. And this is the signing that will cap off the window. And the difference this makes in terms of how I would see the window, if we can get this over the line, is massive. It goes from a kind of 6.5, 7 out of 10 window for me personally, up to like a 9 out of 10 window. So that's a big jump because I still felt that even with having gone and addressed the goalkeeping situation, having brought in a really promising centre-back, who I'm excited about, by the way, in Mosquera, having brought Zubimendi and Norgard, I beg your pardon, to kind of boost the midfield and regenerate the midfield. And then having got Gyökeres and Madueke, I still felt like we were lacking creativity and a creative spark of a player. We still, for my money, were relying way too much on Martin Odegaard alone for that. And so you bring in Eberechi Eze, you solve the issue on the left-hand side because he can play there. He'll play that role differently, but he can play there. You also can use him in the more central areas and take some of that creative burden off of Martin Odegaard. And so given that we've already got Madueke and Gyökeres in the door, Eze felt like the best option for me because he gives you a bit of everything. I said on the pod earlier that in Noni Madueke, we'd signed half a left winger. Well, in Eberechi Eze, we've signed another half of a left winger, but we've also signed a creative, a player that can make things happen, a player who has perfected the ability to box crash, who isn't afraid to shoot from distance, who can dribble, who can commit people. Eberechi Eze can do all of those things. And the idea of him going to Tottenham, I've got to be honest with you guys, it was breaking my heart. Now, this isn't done and dusted. It's not over the line. But lots and lots of people are very excited right now because, yes, Sky is saying that Arsenal are considering a move for Eberechi Eze. But David Ornstein, I mean, who would you rather hear this from? Like, if you had to tell me, pick one journalist in the world that is going to give you the bomber, the exclusive, that is going to set you off and make you lose your head in an evening, who's it going to be? It's going to be David Ornstein. So when it comes from David Ornstein, you got to take it seriously. Doesn't mean it's done. Doesn't mean it's happened. Doesn't mean there isn't still plenty of work to do. However, think about the wording here, the wording that David Ornstein uses. And I've met David Ornstein on multiple occasions. He's a fantastic journalist. He's a fantastic person as well. But he's very, very considered in the words he uses. He doesn't use this wording unless he is sure. And he says, Arsenal now closing in on the England international. Closing in, not considering an offer, not thinking about it. They are closing in on Eberechi Eze. And for that, I'm going to lose my head and get super excited. Make sure you control yourselves. Okay, I know I need to practice what I'm preaching. This isn't done yet, so, slow down. But when this comes from David Ornstein, it is powerful, and there's plenty of reason to be excited. So, just wow. Let me open up the actual article itself. Here you go. I'll read you a little bit from it. Arsenal have made their move for Eberechi Eze, and the player wants to join them from Crystal Palace. Talks over the England international between Palace chairman Steve Parish and counterpart Daniel Levy have taken place over recent days, but Arsenal's interest has remained, with negotiations now underway between the two clubs following the knee injury suffered by Kai Havertz. Look, let me just be clear on this, okay? Because it sounds like I'm super excited at a time that we've just found out that we could have potentially lost one of our key players for a long, long time, okay? And I don't want it to sound like I don't care about Kai Havertz's injury. I absolutely do. And it's a horrible blow. And after the injury he suffered in the second half of last season, having worked so hard and fought his way back to fitness, imagine what that feels like for him right now. We've got to take a moment to think about that, right? And losing him makes us weaker as a squad. There's no question about that. But if there was one antidote to this frustration and to this disappointment, it would be this, wouldn't it? Eberechi Eze seemingly ready to make a move to Arsenal, and Arsenal ready to action it and try and make it happen. Can you somehow, some way, use the Kai Havertz injury, or if you want to flip the Kai Havertz injury into a kind of positive thing, could you say that it's a bit of a blessing in disguise? Like, look, because it's forced Arsenal into going and doing what they need to do. Like, best case scenario is that we hear that Kai Havertz's injury isn't as bad as first feared. He's going to be out for 2-3 months, but Arsenal still go out and get Eberechi Eze. Or are you a little bit more of a pessimist? Are you a little bit more of a cynic? And are you looking at this and going, well, if Arsenal were doing this, then maybe it means Kai Havertz is going to be out for 9 months, 12 months. And nobody wants that. We need depth, obviously. And we said that we were short without Eze and with Havertz. So, if you lose one and you bring one in, you could still argue that numbers-wise in the attacking areas we're short. But I'm not trying to put a positive spin on a Kai Havertz injury, particularly one that has the potential to be serious. But my point here is this the kind of move that Arsenal only make because they know that Kai Havertz is going to be out for a long time, which is obviously bad news. But if it pushes Arsenal into going out and getting the player that we all think they need, then has something positive come out of it? Kai won't see it that way, nor would I expect him to. But yeah, that's just kind of me thinking out loud. That's the problem with doing these pods just minutes after something breaks. According to The Athletic, Spurs had the conditions of a deal agreed with Crystal Palace today and the player, but are ready to move on to alternative targets if Eze chooses Arsenal. Palace would not finalise a deal because they wanted the 27-year-old available for Thursday's Conference League playoff match with Fredrikstad. Arsenal have indicated a willingness to meet the conditions, and he wants to joining them, leaving Spurs with little option but to look elsewhere. Don't you love that? The Athletic reported earlier on Wednesday that Arsenal were actively exploring the transfer market to potentially reinforce their attack in the event Havertz is sidelined for a significant period of time. So, yeah. We're trying to make it happen, guys. We are trying to make it happen. Exclusive. What's Fabrizio Romano saying? Because I know a few of you in the chat have pointed out whatever it is that Fabrizio Romano's tweeted. Let me just bring it up. He says, following talks tonight, Arsenal are convinced that Eberechi Eze prefers to join them over Tottenham. The £60 million package offered to Palace with easier add-ons and faster payment terms to try beat Spurs. Negotiations underway. Right. Before we continue on, and we're going to continue on through the show, and we're going to continue to react to this breaking news, we're also going to talk about that Kai Havertz injury. We're also going to talk a little bit about, the whether the Trossard thing that we discussed on the main pod earlier makes a little bit more sense, knowing that Kai Havertz had suffered this problem. We'll get into all of that. Stay with us. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. We're live on Wednesday night. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video, not in the chat box, but on the video itself. Can we get to 1,000 likes? I mean, if there was ever a video that we should get 1,000 likes for, it's this one. So hit that like button. It really, really does help. And subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. A massive thank you, by the way. I totally forgot to say it to you this morning for helping us get to that 45,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. I really, really appreciate the love and support. And if you're listening on Apple or if you're listening on Spotify, please do leave us a review as well. All of that stuff really, really does help. Right, look, really brief pause and we'll be back. We'll take your thoughts from the chat box on the Eberechi Eze stuff. And we'll, of course, react to the news that we got a little bit earlier in the day with regards to Kai Havertz's injury. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Very, very short break.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You are listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Okay, let's take some of your thoughts from the chat. Ash says, even though we're disrespecting him a little bit, I think he's talking about Kai Havertz. I am buzzing. Look, let me be absolutely 100% clear. I've been a huge defender of Kai Havertz, right? I've given him a lot more credit than a lot of Arsenal fans would, because while I don't think he's perfect, I do think he adds something special to the team. And I do think he gives us something that we don't have really in any other player. And actually, the idea of Victor Gyökeres coming in really kind of appealed to me over the summer. But part of the excitement was that not only would we have this out and out number 9 who would lead the line, but that we now had Kai Havertz who we could call upon, who could finish games, who could be the Swiss Army knife that I thought he was when we signed him. And he could give us a different dynamic when we need it. I mean, he came on at Old Trafford the other day, didn't do anything spectacular, don't get me wrong, but he held the ball up, he won free kicks, he put himself into challenges, and he was committed to the cause. So, for me, I'm finding this a little bit difficult, because while I just want to completely lose my head with excitement at the prospect of Arsenal signing Eberechi Eze, which this morning I didn't even think was a possibility, there is a part of me that feels like we have to just tone it down a little bit, because this may well be something that we've only decided to proceed with because the diagnosis and the prognosis that we're going to get around Kai Havertz's injury in the next couple of days, hopefully, is not a good one. So yeah, anyway. Tony K says, any news on when Gabby Jesus is coming back? I have no idea, mate. I have no idea. But obviously, that's another option. I know people don't necessarily rate him, and I know there's a lot of people that are questioning whether he'll ever be back to his best because of the nature of the 2 injuries that he suffered, and how difficult they are to recover from, how long it takes you to get back to your best. And then he suffered another one just when it felt like he was getting back to something like his old self. But when he comes back, that's another addition, that's another option, and he's a player I really, really like. So that will be a positive whenever that is. I have seen some stuff on social media where he sort of posted himself getting ready to do certain bits of training. There was something that popped up on my feed the other day about him back training on grass again, which is a good sign, but I don't have a specific date on that. AFC D&B says, don't want to get too excited. Not yet, but Eze doesn't fix that we are an injury away from a Merino up front again. Yeah, I guess you're right. But Eze coming in does give us something that I really do truly believe that we need. But 3 days ago, if we talked about the centre forward position, we would have all said we're fine there. Okay, we're absolutely fine there. We've got Victor Gyökeres in now, who will find his feet and will find his way in an Arsenal shirt. And we've got Kai Havertz, and we've got Gabby Jesus on his way back. And we've got maybe Martinelli that you can stick through the middle in certain game states because of his pace. And we've got Mikel Merino, who can be the kind of last resort. And Ethan Nwaneri can maybe play as a false 9 because he's a fantastic finisher. Like you would have said 2 days ago, even yesterday, that we're fine in the centre forward position. And what this injury to Kai Havertz does is show you that there are really kind of fine margins in football. And even when you think you're really well stocked, most of the time you're only ever really one injury away from then being one injury away again from another problem or sort of catastrophe, So I'm not going to sort of sit and put a downer on the Eze thing because of what's happened at centre forward for us. I think if anything, it reminds people of how fragile your position can be, even when you think that you've got 2 options in any given one position. And so we talk about squad depth all the time. Like, how much squad depth can you possibly have without ever having to worry about these issues? Like, you'll never get to that point, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you spend, because you won't simply be able to keep that many players happy, etc., etc. Matthew says he had a feeling that the Eze door wasn't shut, and as a fan, where the first game he saw was Palace beating us 3-0 in 2021. He says, what a talent he is, and he is a vibe. Tony says, we'll miss Kai's hold-up play and height up front. Yeah, look, let's just put a pause on the Eze stuff for a minute, and let's talk a little bit about how the Havertz stuff unfolded, because that was actually what I jumped on to discuss on this bonus/emergency episode of the pod, whatever you want to call it. I actually came on to talk about Kai Havertz, and as I say, for those of you joining us a little bit later on in the stream, we started a stream, it completely crashed and burned, and before I was able to get back on, I got the David Ornstein notification, and we've had to completely pivot and change direction. It's a welcome pivot, obviously, but what is the deal with Kai Havertz? So earlier in the day, David Ornstein said that he suffered a knee injury, that assessments of the injury were at the early stages, that the prognosis and duration of the potential absence were unclear at the time, that Arsenal were actively exploring the transfer market for a signing to strengthen the attack and provide cover. And then Matt Law in the Telegraph came out and said that Arsenal were kind of looking at low cost / loan options. And then you're sitting there and you're going, well, if we have just given Leandro Trossard these improved terms, something that might have been pre-agreed, as we discussed in the pod earlier in the day. Not that it makes sense to me still, regardless of whether it was pre-agreed. It doesn't really make sense to me that you would give someone a bump in terms, but you wouldn't give them an extension. It's kind of sending mixed messages in it. So I had my little moan about that earlier in the day. But you kind of have been led to believe over the last few days that the reason Arsenal weren't proceeding for an Eberechi Eze was because of the UEFA rules, because we don't have as much headroom there as we do with the Premier League's rules, and that we couldn't do anything significant until we made some sales. And in terms of sales, you're talking Vieira, you're talking Lokonga, you're talking Nelson potentially, you're talking maybe Jakub Kiwior, who was interestingly left out of the squad at Man United. So you're looking at those players and you're going, well, until that happens, we're kind of stuck. So then when the news came out about Havertz and they're saying that we're actively exploring the transfer market, there was a part of me that was like, hold on, hit the brakes a minute. If we can't spend until we make sales, what are we going to do in terms of replacement or in terms of cover? Are we going to go out and bring someone in on loan or a low-cost option, in which case you know that there's going to be a meltdown again? Because we want to see this team constantly improving. We don't want to see the team being weakened. And who are you going to go and get on loan or for very, very little cost that would be as good an option as Kai Havertz to support and back up Victor Gyökeres? So that's why, in part, aside from the Havertz injury itself, I was really downbeat a little bit earlier on in the day. But maybe that stuff isn't true. Maybe Arsenal have found a way, or maybe Arsenal are going to do what I said they should try and do, which is go out, back themselves to make those sales between now and the end of the window, find another way to raise the funds. And listen, I don't know what the fines look like, but sometimes, yeah, you just have to take it on the chin. And I know Arsenal are really big on like not breaking any rules and not breaking any laws and not doing anything that isn't absolutely 100% the right, correct way to go about things. But we've seen Nottingham Forest, go and overspend because they thought it would help them on the pitch and take that risk and take it on the chin, the fine. They did exactly that. They rolled the dice. They gambled and it worked because they survived in the Premier League. Then they went on and qualified for Europe. And that money that Marinakis and Nottingham Forest forked out for the fine that they faced, who cares, man? They've made it back 100 times over. I'm not saying that you actively want to go out and break the rules and get yourself into trouble, or that you want to operate the way that Marinakis operates Nottingham Forest. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, if you've got sales that you think you can make between now and the end of the window, Vieira maybe, Kiwior perhaps, Lokonga, Hein, maybe Zinchenko, back yourself to do that. Back yourself to be able to get those deals over the line. It's Andrea Berta now. Back yourself. Fund the deal for someone like Eze, and we'll worry about that after. That's the way I would look at it. Lots of people popping their questions and comments in, which is great to see. Jack Willoughby says, Eze, finally a player that can help us break down those low blocks and help on the transition. I think he is a player that can help us break down low blocks. It's part of the reason that I really, really wanted him. Because he's someone that can dribble, someone that commits people, someone that will shoot from distance, someone that will make late runs into the box, untracked, undetected. I really like this signing for a number of reasons. Stan the Man says, this half a left winger thing is ridiculous. What are we going to do? Sew Madueke and Eze together, just referencing my comments earlier. No, but you know what I mean. Obviously, we're not going to flipping rip their heads off and sew them together. It's not what I'm saying. Come on. The point I'm making is that maybe I should have phrased it like this. We half addressed the left wing situation by signing Madueke because we kind of, we're not sure that he's going to be able to do it to the standard and to the level required. I'm not anyway. So we half addressed it. And with Eze, we half address it. Not we bought half a man and we're going to piece him together with another half of a man. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Do you know what's funny as well, right? I got a really good friend who is a Tottenham fan. Those of you that are long-term listeners of the Chronicles of Aguna, you'll remember him, Dan DeLuca. Absolute legend, lovely guy, really great friend of mine. But yesterday, me and him were having this massive debate on WhatsApp. We were sending each other voice notes, and he's on holiday abroad, and he bumped into the waiter as he was angrily sort of strolling through the hotel restaurant, sending me a really agitated voice note because I basically said that the only reason Eze has seemingly decided to go to Spurs is because Arsenal haven't come in yet. And that if Arsenal did come in, then it would be easy for Eberechi Eze to make the decision. And he'd say, nope, I'm going to Arsenal. And he said, typical arrogant Arsenal fans, you all think that you're better than us, blah, blah, blah. You haven't won the league for over 20 years, which is right about. Yeah, fine. But basically, he was making the case that it's not a given that Eze would choose us and that actually going to Tottenham might be better for Eze for a number of reasons. And actually, it might be a better move for his career. And we were arguing about this. And so when I got that David Ornstein tweet, before I thought about the stream, before I did anything, I screenshotted it and sent it to him. And I've got about 6 messages from him now, a couple of which are voice notes that I'm going to put my feet up, open a beer, and have a good listen to a little bit later on. DJD says, yeah, that's an excellent friendship. Making your friends angry while they're on holiday. Yeah, it's all banter, man. It's all banter. It's all love. It's all love. Clifton Richards says he just went on a Spurs stream and they're absolutely furious. Look, we got to hold our horses a little bit because it's not done yet. But I am pleased that we've seemingly pulled our finger out and are going to make this signing because, you know, let's think for the best case scenario. If Havertz is only out for a couple of months, and I know that's not great, but 2-3 months, given how big a deal has been made of this and how bad it could potentially be, would feel like a bit of a win. But if you could then, a couple of months down the line, have Havertz and Eze in the squad, plus the other players that we've brought in and what we already have, then I feel a lot better and a lot more confident about our business. Steve said, sorry, Harry, I can't follow you down this path. I'm not sure what path you mean. Just clarify that and I'll respond for sure. Trevor says, with all this happiness on the podcast, don't forget to hit the like button. Yeah, that's a good reminder because we're going to start wrapping up in a minute. I did say to the wife, look, I'll put the kids to bed. I'll put them to bed at 7:30. It's 8:15. So they're either running riot or she's had to take over. And as heavily pregnant as she is, I'm sure she's not going to be happy with me bailing. But we have a podcast, and that's just the way it goes. I don't control what time David Ornstein drops his bombers, do I? Don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe. As I say, if you're listening or if you're with us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review as well. That really, really does help. Also, I don't want to go into detail because that would be wrong and unfair, but I did speak to someone who's involved at Crystal Palace over the weekend that I met at a game I was covering, who said that Eze's preference very much is Arsenal. And, you know, that kind of made me even more upset at the time because I was like, well, why aren't we doing it? Why are we letting him go to Spurs? It's like, you know, in those films where you get the kind of the guy that loves the girl, right? And she should love him, but she chooses the bad option because he's just not saying the right things or whatever. That's kind of how I felt when I heard that. Oh, Steve says with regards to deliberately breaking UEFA financial rules. Well, look, yeah, I get why people would say, no, don't do that. But my point was kind of, we need to have a win at all costs type mentality. And I don't think we have that as a football club. I'm not saying that the manager doesn't or that the players don't, but as a football club, it does feel sometimes like we're just a little bit too prim and proper. Meanwhile, the teams that have been hoovering up trophies, Manchester City and Chelsea, have a completely different outlook and approach. And they've been very, very successful off the back of that. So that's why I get a little bit frustrated sometimes. That's why I get a little bit frustrated. Big shout out to Chad, who says, getting to watch live from the US. Love the show, Harry. Listen every morning Eastern time. And I ask lots of questions in my head that you can't see on the chat. Keep up the good work. Thank you very, very much, mate. Really, really do appreciate it. Wes Perd says, how's she doing? Talking about my wife. She's all right. Thank you. She's doing all right. She's a bit uncomfortable. She's in the very latter stages of the pregnancy. And, it can get uncomfortable. I understand. And we got 2 young kids as well that, it's the summer holidays. They want to do things, they want to, they want to run riot. They want to be out and about. And when I'm trying to support a little bit there, but also have work and trying to balance and juggle the 2 things, and I'm not around as much as I should be, then it all gets a little bit much. So I have to try and relieve her of the struggle a little bit in the evenings, and she's going to kill me when I go back inside the house. But hey, it is what it is. Right. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining me on this impromptu bonus / emergency edition of the podcast. Really, really do appreciate it. This is the signing that I wanted. This is the player that I thought would cap off the window for us. The player that, for me, really moves the needle in terms of this window. And it looks like we are right in the mix to sign him at the time of recording. Thank you so much. Really, really do appreciate all the love and support. One last ask for a like or a subscribe if you haven't done that already, whatever platform it is that you're joining us from. A reminder as well, you can check us out on Patreon because we have got a brand new Patreon feature this season that I think you guys will enjoy. I had some good feedback from our existing patrons. Click on the link in the description. Go and check it out. We did a sort of video review of the Man United game. We picked a 15-minute segment of the game. That's what we're going to be doing going forward. That taught us something, that showed us something. And we worked our way through that. We watched it together and we worked our way through that. So check that out. Link in the description. I will see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day. I love this from Billy. Harry loves a rom-com. You know what? When you're tired and you can't decide what to watch, and the wife says, "Oh, how about we stick this rom-com on?" I always give it a little bit of a, "Oh, do we have to?" But inside, I actually don't mind now and again. Don't tell anyone. Anyway, see you soon. Goodbye.